Netanyahu's an asshole. I just
Oh,
don't think it's a
I
genocide
think
based
he's
off
a
of United Nations um, a distinction of what they would call a genocide. I actually thought about it, and I wrote down like what I considered um, regarding what's and it's possible that in the future it could evolve into a genocide. It's just a matter of if it could happen.
Okay, well, there's obviously a billion different roads we could go down, but I would be really curious to hear what have they not done yet that they would have to do for it to evolve to that point.
They would have to start gunning down Palestinians in the West Bank. If they gun down Palestinians in the West Bank, I'm 1,000% on your side.
Okay, well, that's been happening in slow motion with the illegal settlements. I mean, people will literally
Um,
go and take somebody's home. The
I
IDF
can
will serve as their bodyguards, and they will kill them, and nothing happens.
Well,
But,
so
but
here's what I can
okay,
at least provide. I can provide the Israel-Palestine live UA map, which what it's doing is that it is grabbing particular points of violent protests or things that are happening in regards to the war itself, and they're grabbing it from multiple sources. From people's Twitter, like personal Twitter accounts of them just writing about it. Just to news stations. To they pull up a lot of different sources, and they'll give you like the particular like what happened at this point. Everything that I've seen that is happening have been like violent protests or protests that end in violence, to like Israeli security forces raiding homes. I have seen that, but I'm not seeing like this like systematic gunning down in the West Bank, right? You would see a bunch of red pox all throughout this map if that were the case. But you do see a bunch of, I'm sorry, blue marks if that were the case. Like you could see it all over Gaza, where it's like it's pretty indiscriminate in the killing that they're doing. But if they really, really hated those Palestinians, they could absolutely go into the West Bank and just start gunning them down. And I don't see that.
so I don't really think that addresses what I said about the fact that they've been taking squatters have taken. I mean, I don't know how many illegal settlements there are said to be, but I'm not uncertain that it's at least thousands. And
I've
that's
not
been going on for
heard about.
for decades.
I mean, I mostly use Reuters uh, articles to like see like what's going on with Israel Palestine. I haven't heard a whole lot of these squatters. Could you provide me something that I could just take a look at?
A source? I mean, I can try to find one.
I like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just curious, just because like I haven't heard of this. What you're talking about?
I mean, does United Nations count?
I, of course. Why
So,
would
I
they
mean,
not count?
I can send this
Of course it
in
counts.
the chat, and I am doing this on the fly, so who knows? But this says from 2012 to 2022, the population of Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank had grown from 500,000 to over 700,000. These settlers lived illegally in 279 Israeli settlements across the occupied West Bank, including 14 settlements in the occupied East Jerusalem, with a total population of more than more than 229,000 people. So, yeah, there
Take a
are.
look
I mean,
here.
there have been stories about this for years and years and
Presentation
years. Like literally, people from the United States will go there and they will say, "I am an Israeli," and they'll just take somebody's home, and sometimes they like get chased out of there, and it's not that big of a deal. But there have been cases where they have killed people, taken their home, and like I said, the IDF just acts as as bodyguards for
Okay,
this. There have
so
been
there are some very particular settlements that are like effectively like, okay, this is Palestinian controlled in the West Bank. Are they breaking UN charters?
well, it crosses the recognized boundaries. is
Oh,
that's
okay.
the and Israel keeps redrawing the lines saying no, 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 like they keep selling, they have this
Yeah.
weird real estate thing. They're like, no, we're taking up all these areas because those are ours, because they either reject lines that were drawn in 67 or whatever. The history of this is extremely complicated. I can't give I can't give super detailed I can't give tons of details on this, but just in general, these are things that I know, have heard about, that are going on. But
Okay.
so the West Bank thing isn't really all that interesting for now for me, but I am really curious why. It's like you said, if they did what they're doing in Gaza in the West Bank, then it would. Why on earth does Gaza not count?
So it's not that Gaza doesn't count. It's that if you look at the exact verbiage that exists regarding the UN charters that were drafted in the 19, I don't, it could have been the 40s or the 50s. I have it written down. Um, where it was like, okay, this is what you need in order for it to be a genocide. You have to match these criteria. It's a law document. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, here, I'll pull it up exactly. Don't worry. I mean, I could easily change my opinion on this. I am not married to this idea. I just looked at it
Yeah.
as it was and was just like, okay. So let me see if I can pull it up here. So it says the term genocide is defined and characterized through specific criteria. The concept established legally under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which was adopted in 1948. So, okay, the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Intent is a key element that distinguishes genocide from other forms of mass violence. Targeted group, the acts committed with the purpose of eliminating or harming that particular group. Scale, the genocide can occur on a large or small scale involving mass killings or the systematic actions to destroy the targeted group. The scale does not diminish the severity to note. The systematic nature. Genocide is characterized by the systematic and organized actions involving government or state authorities, militias, or other groups carrying out the acts with the coordinated effort. So, in order for the actions of Israel to be considered a genocide, all of these requisites must be met. Looking at it from an objectively verifiable point of view, we could observe whether or not it is a genocide. So, I
Okay.
said here, hmm?
So with that, do you just have skepticism that that South Africa's case was poorly done, and that the, I don't know what it was, a dozen judges, including the US judge who signed off on it and said, yes, there's a plausible case here. Do you think that they read the UN charter on what genocide is
it
incorrectly?
it could be plausible, but ultimately, what would end up happening is that the United Nations would likely be the arbiter. I mean, of course, any
Well, they
country
would
can
have to
disagree
be.
with it, but like it would, I feel like it needs to go through the UN because they are the ones that are drafting these charters, defining the legal term of genocide.
Yes. So the International Court of Justice, the ICGN. I don't know specifically. Are they a wing of the United Nations, or do they just work with them? Is it a completely separate body?
I'm actually not sure.
Okay.
I'm not
Well,
sure at all.
because the way I understood this, this whole thing was going to be. I mean, this is going to be. I don't know. I guess we could. I guess we could figure that out. But I think for now, I mean, we could just go through the list of things that are on here. So, like, I'm looking at Article 2, the first thing, killing members of the group. I mean, that's obviously happening, right?
I agree.
In Gaza. And like one of the tactics that Israel will use is they'll say, for example, well, we're going after, like, I don't know what it is. The last I heard, it was 30,000 dead. And they'll say something like, well, yeah, but about 12,000 of those are members of Hamas. And that's
Yeah.
loaded language because Hamas is their government. Like, if you're a mailman, well, maybe not a mailman, but like
Well, I mean,
if
Hamas
you're a
wants to
secretary,
wants to kill them, right?
sorry, what?
They want to make sure that there is no Israel. They want every single Jew dead.
So I know, like in the 80s, that was part of the Hamas charter. From what I understand, it's not now. I'm not defending Hamas. I think that they're terrible, but that is their government. So when you bomb a building and you kill 100 people, and there were absolutely no militants in that building, but there were some like people that work for the government, like a secretary, maybe somebody that's in charge of some administration, right? Because they have the right to have a government. It's one of the worst governments on the planet. I don't disagree with that, but you can't kill people for their opinion. So they'll say we killed a bunch of members of Hamas, as if that's the same thing as killing terrorists or combatants or members of the military, right? Like, well, I mean, I could say more, but that's the main thing.
Okay. I mean, like, I don't disagree with you here, at all, I guess. But I guess, like,
Well,
I
so
mean, if we
because
look back
you
at the
can,
UN Charter here,
yeah, my
I guess
point
like
is
what
you
I'm
can be
caught up
killing
on.
citizens, and like you can say, oh, these members of Hamas were killed, but they're still citizens. That's like the main thing.
I agree.
Okay.
At the same, well, I mean, you know how guerrilla war works, right? I mean, anytime there's a guerrilla war, that's immediately there's civilians killed. Like, there's really no way to avoid not killing civilians. With that being said, though, I think
Well, they could do a
Netanyahu's
hell of
gone
a
way too far,
yeah,
right? I completely
Hamas
agree.
does a better job of not killing civilians than Israel does. Okay, so they're killing members of the group. Like, we don't disagree that that's happening. And I think that they are deliberately killing members of the group indiscriminately.
Okay,
I don't necessarily
but let
think
me
that
ask you
that's
this though, right?
the
Like,
official policy.
do you think that the intent of Israel is to destroy all Palestinians?
Well, that's what they say. Benjamin Netanyahu in Hebrew repeatedly says
fair enough.
Israel will be
Benjamin.
Israel will go from the river to the sea. There will be no Palestinian state. He talks about
I mean,
just
that guy's a
completely getting rid
psychotic
of
right
Gaza.
winger that
Well, it's
like
not
a
just
lot of
him.
people don't.
Ben Gvir
Like,
and a
the
lot of
guy's
others in that
psychotic.
cabinet talk about it. They talk about nuking the place, that they should do it. Turn it into a parking lot. I hope all the kids die. Well, that was something
Yeah, but
that
in the West Bank, this is where I'm stuck. I'm stuck again. I'm like, dude, they're not killing every single. There are Palestinians in Israel right now. They're living there. So it's like, I don't understand. Like if they wanted to kill all Palestinians, they could. They could round them up and just start gunning them down in the street.
But
they're
have
not doing
kill
that.
all
They're
of them
doing
to
it
be a
in
genocide.
Gaza because they believe that
that's
there's like
enough.
Hamas there and that there's guerrilla warfare involved. With that being said, though, I don't think cutting off the water and electricity, like, that's pretty awful. Like, bombing a hospital, that's pretty awful. Like, there's a lot of like situations where I'm just like, yeah, Netanyahu fucking sucks. But at the same time, I'm just like, I just don't think it's a genocide on basis that they could easily kill every single Palestinian, like,
They don't
literally
have to.
tomorrow. Then I would be on your side.
Okay, so I think I can cut to the chase with the question. If the IDF just, or like Israel, whatever, nuked Gaza, every single one of them died, which they would also, I guess, get to claim that they eradicated Hamas, except I think there are a lot of Hamas members that live in Qatar, and they're not even trying to like have them arrested and extradited or anything. But anyways, let's just say they completely nuke Gaza. I think by your logic, it still wouldn't be a genocide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're not in the West Bank. Like, again, maybe
They don't.
Mean,
that's.
Do you think that
Gaza is
bombing,
enough?
Like, Japan was a genocide? Is that a genocide? Like, our goal is not to systematically kill every Japanese person during World War II. We just wanted to show them, like, hey, look at our power.
You don't have,
right? Like, it had nothing to do with like, hey, let's kill them all.
You don't have to kill everybody for it to be a genocide. I mean,
well,
Hitler wasn't successful, therefore it wasn't a genocide.
Okay, so.
And they didn't want to. They didn't want to globally eradicate.
I'm like
the
reading
Jews.
my notes here.
They wanted to eradicate them
the intent
from
to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group.
Yeah, Gaza would be enough.
I mean, so the in part. Yeah, I think I'm fuck shit. I think I actually have to reformat my thinking on this. 'Cause it says or impart. It's the fact that it has this or. Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think I got to rethink it.
Yeah, that's fine. So I mean, that's the killing thing. Like, obviously, they're killing people, and
Wait,
there's
you just owned me in a debate. Do you understand how hard it is to do that?
it's par for the course for me. So
I will post this on YouTube. This is great.
so what's the second thing on there? Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. So I don't have any comments on the or actually I should say I don't have many comments on the, what would you call it? Uh Psychological warfare that Israel is playing. But they have done some specific, pretty disgusting, horrible things. Like, they've intentionally targeted non-militants before. Like, I can't remember his name, but there was this poet. He's a Palestinian poet, and he just goes around talking. He's not one. From what I've heard, he's never said something like "destroy Israel," blah blah blah. But he's probably had some extremely harsh and charged language for them. Which, if you killed hundreds of members of my family, I would probably have pretty horrible things to say as well. But
Sure.
nothing like he's not a member of Hamas or anything like that. They intentionally airstriked his home, and I think like 49 people were killed, but he lived. But then a couple of months ago, they found out where he is again. They targeted him and they killed him. So that's kind of an example of psychological warfare, because they have these hit lists of people like that, and they have gone after them before. I would say, like, in a way, I think this Israel campaign, there is a lot of shock and awe to it. Like, I mean, you might not be able to grow food in Gaza ever again. They put seawater in it. I mean, that sterilizes the soil. This is it's not scorched earth, but it's
awful.
Salt of the earth. Very Old Testament. They've burned down their fields too.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do not like Netanyahu's tactics, and I think he right now he's ludicrously unpopular among Jewish citizens. Just so you know, like, everyone does not like.
They
this
support
guy.
what he's doing, but
and
they hate
he's
him.
likely going to be facing war crimes, in the future. And I was saying that even before, you are you convinced me.
Yeah. Apart from that, I don't know. I don't think I really have anything to say on the causing serious bodily or mental harm. Well, I mean, the bodily harm. I mean, that's. I heard a statistic. It was like every day 10 Palestinian kids lose their limbs or something like that. I can't remember specifically what it was, but it was pretty horrible. I mean, like the Flower Massacre, that was pretty obvious. They just shot those people for no reason.
Yeah,
it was just so incredibly
it's pretty
stupid.
Awful. I agree.
Part C, deliberately inflicting on the group.
I mean, you're not going to see me defending like these violent actions. I mean, they're just terrible. Like it's just like unneeded suffering for no reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. Part C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. It's been under siege since October 8th. We talked about the deliberate cutting off of the utilities and running water and electricity. That's pretty bad. But they won't let food go in there. There are protesters, Israeli protesters at Gaza blocking aid trucks from going in.
I'm seeing mixed reports on this, by the way.
And
I didn't want to say whether or not that they were or not. Like, each side is blaming each other for doing it. It's really weird. And because I mean, if Reuters couldn't like figure it out on their own, then I mean, what hope do I have? Like, I'm just like, who is blocking it? Like, it was just like, well, it's kind of, it was like, oh, it goes into like this warehouse, and then like after that, like the warehouse goes into like individual trucks, but we don't know where the trucks go. Sometimes they get raided, and it's like, it's just really weird. Like, I don't know, it's really hard to say exactly where it is.
Yeah. Well,
it could be a bit of both. I mean,
I never saw I never saw photos on the ground of this. I've just been listening to people describe it. But there are protesters, and I've heard them be interviewed. So this is outside. But they are just, like when the BLM riots, protests, whatever you want to call them, were going on in 2020, people were blocking highways and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
it seems to be that sort of thing. And the IDF is there acting as bodyguards. They put up motherfucking bouncy castles there for the kids to play in. And they just sit there and they're like, yeah, we're just making sure that these people blocking aid, making sure they're all right. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, the IDF is there crushing any dissenting protest, Israeli or Palestinian. So, I mean, they're aiding and abetting the blocking of food going to us. And 2 million people are now in famine. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, no, I've been seeing photos of that. It's actually terrible. Like I have nothing to say about that other than, I mean, it's just horrendous to see that sort of thing. I mean, zero defense for that. I mean, again, I was never a fan of Netanyahu, especially after this war.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about the psychological warfare. I mean, they've destroyed graves. I don't know if they're doing that. It seems like a lot of things that the IDF does, they do it for funsies. There's been all the reports of they're going into people's houses and cooking meals, putting on ladies' underwear, walking around, going... They've been bombing mosques and filming it and putting it on TikTok and nothing. So actually, I said I don't have a lot to say about the psychological warfare, but there actually is quite a lot to say about that. A lot of that, the most generous thing I can say, is not all this is necessarily Israel is doing it. Because they talk about a lot of this comes down to breakdowns of what they call command and control. So, like, for example, when the 3 hostages that got freed were shot and killed, that was just because what had been told through the chain of command was, like, shoot anything that moves, right? And so they make these insane, horrendous mistakes, and that's what they blame it on. And, like, I don't think that's a valid excuse.
But it's like they did that by design. Like, they're doing it on purpose.
Well, I wouldn't say... So I'm trying to be generous here. I wouldn't say that they're doing that to just massacre as many ordinary people as possible. I don't think that that's necessarily the intent. Those horrible things happen. But it's not an excuse. Like, you can't just say... Like, you can't just throw your hands up and be like, oopsie, we're incompetent. Like, no, you will still be charged with...
Yeah, I mean, you killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's that.
You killed a bunch of people, like, period.
Calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or in part.
You know, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you've just thoroughly just annihilated me on this debate. Let's see here. This is Eric. Planet Peterson.
Yeah, you got a mod here whose name is Eric, and it's confusing me.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask a quick question, and then I'll invite Ziggy. But what do you think of trans people?
What do I think of trans people?
Yeah, what do you think of trans people?
I don't know what that means. Like, are you asking me? Do I accept the concepts of, like, trans identity?
Yeah.
Oh. I'm not really sure. I don't really have that much of a problem with it. There are some logical problems with it.
Like what?
And, well, like the idea of if you just say that you are something, then that just... It's like, you know, remember the Apache helicopter thing from, like, 2012 when that all started? I'm like, yeah, okay, don't be an asshole. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if a woman is just somebody says they're a woman, then that's not an argument. Like, I want to hear what I think the real issue with this is I don't think that gender is actually all that useful of a term or a necessary one. So I don't really think that gender and biology are the exact same thing. And when people say that they are, I just typically like to ask them, do you believe in God? And it's like, yes. Okay, so your God has a preferred pronoun. Your God is this disembodied, non-biological he. Okay, so shut the fuck up when you say that they're the exact same thing, please. I think there are hypocrites on I guess kind of both sides. But
Well, maybe you can poke holes in my argument. So do you know anything about endocrinology?
I mean, a little.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole too much about it either, other than, well, humans' hormones are complex. Do you think it is possible um, in your brain to have different hormones than what is typical of your external sex characteristics, such as your genitals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have seen some research. I haven't looked into it very carefully, but like they find out that there are some like people identify as trans, like they're neurodivergent and their brain is wired like a person of the other biological sex, and
Yep.
that's compelling and that's really interesting. It's just
Yep.
that like there are masculine men, there are feminine or sorry, there are masculine men,
Masculine women.
but there are
We
masculine
usually
women.
called them tomboys when we were in
Yeah.
in school. But like, yes, it is true that by having different hormones in your brain, it that are then what's typical of a specific type of sex, then you can actually end up with an incongruence.
Yeah. Like so my thing with this
So I
is
operate it at an endocrinological level where it's like it's now the neurochemistry, it's now the biology, it's now like the hormones, it's their endocrines, it's how the baby develops from birth. Now, with that being said, I don't have like, an MRI scan or like, a brain like analysis machine to check what their hormones are. So only all I have to work off of is like, what are they telling me? And like, whatever their personal phenomenology is, whatever that is, I'm just gonna accept it. Cause again, I'm not like, I don't know what they're going through.
yeah, and that's I mean that's how I feel too. I don't have a problem, referring to people the way they want to be referred and all that other kind of stuff. And I don't say
Mhm.
that this isn't real. I mean, I do think that gender basically is socially constructed, which
Ooh,
sort of
I do not think that. I think it is neurochemically constructed. Gender norms are socially constructed, but gender in itself is a neurochemical construct.
but you're talking about the experience of the individual when you say that, right?
So when I say gender, like there are sex typical behaviors.
Yeah, I agree.
And if your brain is wired in a particular way that causes you to have that sex typical behavior or sex atypical behavior, that would be a neurochemical phenomenon, not a social construct.
Yeah.
Like a good example would be like, do you drink cosmopolitans? That's a social construct. Like for, females tend to drink cosmopolitans because they taste better and they're like kind of a frilly foo drink, right? But it's like that's just socially constructed why we have that. But like take for example like male typical play of like the rough and tumble that you typically expect among males, and the fact that women avoid that physical content among females. That I didn't mean women, but you know what I mean. It that it's stuff like that where it's like, okay, that's a behavior that comes from the neurochemistry and your
Yeah.
hormones as you're developing, and so that stops being a social construct. It's not socially constructed.
I agree, but so let me try to put it this way, because like I follow all of that, but then I started to ask myself questions, and then I realized, yeah, wait a minute. So like for example, like I'm a biological male, and I just call myself a man, right?
Hmm.
That being said, you'd think I would know the answer to this question, but I don't think I do. What is it like to be a man? I have no clue. Do you know why? Because I've never been anything else.
It's true.
So I have
Yes.
no idea what it means. And I think that I don't think anybody has the gift of being able to say, I know what it's
Wait,
like to be.
we can.
Because, and I'm not denying somebody else's experience and how they feel. That's very real. But you can't know the mind and experience of another person. That's the thing. So, like when I go back and forth on this, like there are
Hold on,
masculine.
though.
No. This is really important actually, and it's
Okay, all
it's
right.
very quick. Like I can agree that there are masculine women and feminine men, but what's a female man? I have no idea. And I'm not rejecting any of I'm not rejecting trans identity. I'm not rejecting their right to identify in the way they do. What I think the problem is everybody talks past each other because I think gender maybe just isn't a super useful term. I think we need an overhaul of the English language to be able to explain these things. Because you see these just mind-numbingly stupid conversations like Candace Owens and whoever that guy from BLM or whatever was, where she's like, do you think some men can give birth? And he goes, yeah. But like 2 seconds before that, he acknowledged, yeah, but I don't think that term
I mean, like, it
only
depends on
describes.
what you refer to as the man.
Yeah.
Like, are you referring
Because-
to the sex or are you
yeah.
referring to the gender?
Because she looks at that guy and like, you're crazy. But she's somehow
Yeah.
forgetting that 2 seconds ago, the guy explained to her, no, yeah, I think that biological women are those people that have the capacity to like be the ones that give birth or like whatever, right? So she's pretending that that's not what he thinks when she asks him that question because he's going into a different, I don't know, mode or whatever. So I'm not rejecting any of this stuff. I'm just dissatisfied with the way it plays out. And I what I don't accept, because I'm not a SJW or whatever, is the Yas Queen, affirm absolutely everything. If you question it, you're just bigoted. The exact same kind of thing happens with racism.
I'm not in that camp, by the way. Like,
yeah, but it's the exact same
I
thing.
just generally like will believe people, right? But it's like, I mean, like the idea that it's like there is no like buddy that's just like doing it for like, you know, to experiment or whatever. Like, of course. Like, why would that not be the case? But I don't know.
Yeah,
I
and
just
there's
think
nothing
that's
wrong
like,
with
it's
that.
only a matter of time before, like, you know, it could be a phase for some people, but for other people, man, it's not a phase and it's not going
agree.
away. You know, you have like 60-year-olds that they're just like, they just like decide to go trans. And I'm like, bro, they've been feeling that shit their whole life. They just didn't fucking like, you know, they didn't have the courage to do it.
I agree that almost certainly does happen, right? There's some stuff that like cases of like, especially young people identifying in a different gender, it's gone up like 10,000% or something like that.
Yeah,
and that
I
to
mean,
me,
I'm not
that to
saying
me
that there
says that
isn't-
it's
yeah.
that there's some fadness about it going on. But again, like I'm not saying that all this stuff isn't real or it's fake or whatever. What really drives me crazy, I was trying to say this a little bit ago, is progressives, people on the left like myself, have their own version of thou shalt not create a graven image. And it's with what you say and with what you do. So like, for example, any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. If you say you don't support Black Lives Matter, you're racist. If like, you know, whatever. And the trans thing has that problem too. And I just can't stand that because that's the opposite of critical thinking. And even if you do think somebody is a bigot, we have to hash out ideas in the
I mean, I
marketplace
tend to
of ideas.
actually be pro Black Lives Matter, but like I remember seeing like where they were, you know, where there was a lot of Black Lives Matter protesters destroying property. I was so fundamentally against that. I was just like, this is terrible. This should never happen. Like, this is making Black Lives Matter look horrible. And it's like, you know, it's stuff like that where it's like, I feel like I can offer these kinds of criticisms, but I don't know. People are just so fucking brain rotted. I don't know, fucking dumb. They're just like dumb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with regard to the riot, I mean, you have no way of separating the people that are genuinely there for a good cause and people that are there
that they just like
to take advantage of.
Shit, like,
yeah, and like as if somehow for the first time ever, when you had mobs of people, bad things happened. As if that was the first time that had ever happened. Like, what the hell? Or like, I'm not saying excuse. Like, this is another thing. Like, you try to explain something and people think you're making an excuse for it. It's like, no, that's not what I'm doing, and that's
All right.
that makes every conversation so toxic.
Let me present you this, right? Because I think you trounced me on the first debate, but I think I got you on this one, right?
Well,
It's not really a debate; it's a discussion. Sorry.
I don't know what we really disagreed about. I mean, I said I don't think
Well,
gender's a
okay.
real thing.
No. So you said earlier that gender was a social construct. It is not a social construct. It is a neurochemical construct. I think there's a lot of people on the left, they say it is a social construct, but I don't think that's true.
So
I think there's a anyway, sorry.
I think this might just be an unimportant semantic disagreement. So, for example, any thought that I have about anything would be a social construct. So, like, for example, what would be a good one? I can't think of anything.
Well, the words you're using,
Well,
right? That would
yeah.
be an example.
I mean,
the
sure, we can go with that.
You just determining whether or not something is feminine because it's like women do that thing, like wear dresses. That would be that's a social construct, right? Because that's there's no reason why a man, in fact, there's actually a greater reason for a man to wear dresses, like just from like a pragmatic standpoint, because it just gives you more space for your junk.
Well, I've never done that, but
I know because
Scotland hacked the code
social
on that.
construct is men. Right. Men don't wear dresses, right? Yeah. But think about it just from remove the social stigma behind it, and just think like pragmatically, it actually makes sense for men to wear dresses.
It could, yeah.
Instead, men are wearing like these fucking tight pants, and they sit down and their fucking junk is just so smashed into the fucking pants.
Crushing your sperm count when you do that, by the way. Probably.
Are you really?
It might be. I don't think constriction's a good thing for that. So the point I was trying to make on that is, like, I could take anything that I can that people imagine or whatever, and I could give you a neural correspondence to it, because when I close my eyes and I picture my mom's face, there's a neural pathway. There's a physical that comes about through like whatever, some physical process.
I have to fix something. Okay, everybody, I just want to point out that argument is Daniel Hume's argument about the skirt thing. That is Daniel Hume's argument, not my argument, I guess. Because he is like, dude, don't steal my skirt argument.
Nice.
There. Glad to be of service. Was that you flicking me off? God damn it. I threw you a bone. It's great to talk to you, man. I find myself agreeing with you more than not agreeing with you, which is really good, because I don't know. People are just really dumb. They're just not good.
Well, I mean, statistically speaking, half the population necessarily is below average. So that's a lot of people.
I don't want to know that. I mean, statistically it's true, but I don't
No, it has to be true. Speaking of gender.
I know it's true.
Speaking of gender, here's a great thing you can talk about with somebody that thinks that gender and biology are exactly the same thing. Do you know about guevedoches?
No.
Oh, I'm so happy you don't know what this is, because it's fucking mind-blowing. So it's really prevalent in Haiti for whatever reason, but it's some sort of weird like endocrine chromosomal disorder. Well, it's not like a chromosomal thing, I guess. But so guevedoches, it translates to penis at 12. What the hell does that mean? So sort of like the default biology.
I don't like where this is going.
Oh no, it's fascinating. So the default, in a way, like we start off as girls, sort of. Like the reason men for mammals, well, especially for like humans, the reason we're so prone to getting hernias is because your gonads start inside your body. Like the male testes are the analog to the female ovaries, right? So those start inside your body. But if you're a biological male, you have that Y chromosome, typically. Well, sometimes we get XXY. Shut up. We have to talk in generalizations for everything. So, God. Anyways,
You're fine, dude.
if
I'm
you
not
inherit
gonna
that,
like.
if you inherit that, then there's that SRY gene. It activates and it triggers. It triggers the developmental changes. So the gonads go from inside the body, they drop out, and they actually push forward over the intestine. And actually, the ductwork that connects your urethra to your bowels, that actually, so it goes from your balls in your scrotum, it goes over the front of your pelvis and then loops behind it and does a into the urethra. It's crazy. That's why men get hernias so much more easily, because there's a hole in our abdomen from that. So anyways, that happens just a couple of weeks into development. Well, there's this weird condition where these are biological males. They have the genetic footprint for that, whatever. But the gene doesn't activate until puberty. So when they're born phenotypically completely female. It's not that they don't have a penis or a scrotum, they have a vagina, right?
This is like a part where like a lot of people don't realize that there are internal like portions, even for males, that is different than for females. Like this works at the brain level, around the pelvic region. I think there's even like a portion of the abdomen where, yeah, exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, they have female genitalia. They look exactly like girls. I mean, like with with really young kids, if you like cover them up for the most part and shave their head, it's actually really hard to tell the difference between them because they haven't gone through puberty yet. But anyways, they're girls. Nobody would say that these aren't girls. And then as they go through puberty, literally they just grow a penis and a scrotum. The vagina disappears. It's like the wildest thing ever. And it's documented. There's a doc.
You were mentioning this with Haiti?
Yeah, for some reason it's
word.
Well, I believe I think it's a Spanish word. I don't think it's a Creole word, but yeah, it's just really prevalent there. I guess I don't know what language that word is, but it's extraordinary.
Say it again?
Guevedoche.
That's Spanish for sure.
Yeah.
Huevo doce is like that. I mean, if you're saying it correctly, it could be like huevo doce. Is it huevo doce or guevo?
It's with a G.
I don't know what the fuck it means.
It's not an H. Well, it translates to penis at 12. So, anyways, so nobody, even Matt Walsh, even that idiot, you'd ask him. So when this child goes to elementary school, they're in the 3rd grade. What bathroom are they going to use? You're going to have them go in the boys' room? That would make absolutely no sense.
I mean, like,
right?
They have like an external penis, right? And so, like,
well, no, not before puberty. No, I'm talking before puberty. Weren't you listening? No. They're born and they no. These guevedoches.
No, you were talking about okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, okay, I see what you're saying.
The guevedoches. My bad. So nobody, like, would you really be like, you're a boy, you need to use the boys' bathroom, all this stuff? No, I mean, it makes no sense, right? So you have to admit that this biological, like, to say that this biological male isn't also a girl.
Yeah.
You'd have to betray any common sense that you have. And then now,
for sure.
Look, we have a female man or a female boy or whatever, the thing I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously this doesn't explain transgenderism, but it's just a fascinating
one good example is, have you ever heard of congenital adrenal hyperplasia?
No.
It affects the endocrine system, but it happens at an embryonic stage. So what happens is that when you're at when you're like a developing baby, it actually has nothing to do with estrogen and what makes you female. You're just like a female as you're developing, and it is either having the presence of testosterone or the lack of testosterone. So in some people, they end up having not the correct hormones as they're developing, which then causes their endocrine system to effectively be out of whack. You end up with sex atypical phenotypic characteristics as a result. And it just happens. It's like sometimes it can be things where it's like it's relatively benign. Sometimes it's like crazy extreme. Like you will have like XY chromosomes, like vagina, boobs, hips, female, everything female, and it's like, and they're XY. It's like
there's an episode of House where that happens.
Huh?
There's an episode of House where that happens.
Is that really?
Yeah, it's really fucking funny because this girl, she's like a supermodel, and they can't figure out what the hell's. Well, my God, it's
what's
so
with her?
It's
she's
so
just,
fucking funny. It's
she's
the
like,
most.
She's so cool.
No, dude, you gotta hear this. It's the most brutal thing ever. So she does modeling, and they find out at one point that she got her dad drunk and had sex with him, so that she could be like, from now on, he has to do whatever I say because like he's terrified or whatever. So, but anyways, they find out that she has, I don't know if it's this specific condition, but like she actually has testes inside of her, but she's extremely feminine, and it's because she like has complete bodily insensitivity to testosterone or whatever. She's like the ultimate woman, but biologically she.
So anyways. Androgen responses for females, because like what you have, I believe how it works is like you have androgen responses that then cause them to like absorb, or like it like synthesizes more testosterone than what is expected, and as a result you have like more male typical characteristics. It could be something as simple as like, oh, they're just like a tomboy, or like they just feel like a man. They're like, I wish I was a man, like I gotta be, why am I a female? And these people have existed for pretty much throughout history, and it's like the question is whether or not that, I don't know, people just accept that this is like a thing.
Yeah. But anyways, toward the end of the episode, when they figure this all out, they go in to tell them, and the dad says, "You're joking, right?" And then House goes, "No, me calling you a homo would be me joking. Get it?" And it's like, oh my God. And then she starts having like this freak out. She like takes off her gown. She's like, "Look at me, I'm a woman." And he just says, "Settle down. Tomorrow we're going to cut your balls off," because she has to get them amputated for whatever.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's just so.
This seems
I love
brutal.
House. He's so couldn't make that show today, but he's so. Ugh.
I gotta watch it. I haven't seen it.
Oh man, it's so incredibly good. It's good. Anyways, you said when this whole thing started, you said before we do blank, let's talk about this. So what the hell was the thing we were going to talk about before we got on this for? Whatever.
Oh no, yeah, I was asking you about trans people. I was like before I bring up the person who they wanted to. It was a person who raised their hand in the audience, but they are no longer there.
Oh,
and so
Ziggy or something.
Was it Ziggy? Let me at Ziggy. All right, Magnus wants to speak. What do you want to say to me, Magnus? We talk every day. Let me see at Ziggy. Is Ziggy still here? I don't see Ziggy.
They're not in the audience, but they sent something in the chat.
Yeah, hold on.
Only 2 minutes ago. Oh, there we go. Ziggy.
Ziggy, you ready? He's in gaming VC. Cringe. He's just like, what? I'm like,
apparently Ziggy wanted to come up earlier.
Magnus, so. I don't have an issue with you. It's just we talk consistently, all the time. And I want to let other people what the fuck? He's just like, why am I part of this? Oh my God. On God 20 minutes ago. So now no. Like, I don't know. All right. Okay. He's not interested. That's fine. All right. I'll bring up Magnus. How you doing, Magnus? I'm going to invite you in. All right. That was a really good discussion, Eric. If you want to stick around, you're free. I'm absolutely. I will be linking your
Get it? Because he's playing
video.
Legend of Zelda.
What?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Actually, I wanted to talk with Eric and not with you because I think Eric is fucking based.
Okay, I see what it is.
Pretty awesome person.
Most of the people that say I'm based think, oh, so you're a right winger. It's like, no. Just because I speak out about SJW stuff doesn't mean that I'm not with the right wing on most things.
What is wrong with the right wing?
In America?
I mean, generally they are on the right side, right?
They've actually been on the wrong side of
You will have
history.
to you will have to forgive him. He is German.
Oh, jeez.
Like you.
Right wing
He is
German politics. Has that ever gone
No,
wrong?
no. His humor is
More dry, more whatever.
it's pretty. It can be kind of rough sometimes.
Okay.
It's really dry. I have a dry humor. That's true.
So, what did you want to talk about?
Actually, what was your last topic you both were talking about?
Trans people.
I don't really want to talk about that anymore, to be honest.
Right.
You don't want to talk about transgenders?
No.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty often used topic. Did you read about like these 3 or 4 guys who were just like found on an island right now by the U.S. Coast Guard, and they were like lost their ship and like were on like, this lonely island?
No. When did this happened recently?
It happened recently. Like they were like
I have
on
no idea.
Easter Sunday, and then they were like the families reported that they are missed, and they were like cracking down the ship, which they were used to go to fishing, and stranded on a lonely island.
Okay.
And they were just found 1 week later after they were like with palm leaves into the sand, like help. I think
No,
it's
I've never heard of
pretty
this,
interesting,
but I heard
that-
the exact same story about. Yeah, but this was a long time ago. I saw this on YouTube. The YouTube channel is called Thoughty2, and it was 6 boys, and they survived 15 months on a remote island. They went fishing by themselves, got caught in a storm, got stuck on the island for 15 months. But this is a long time ago. It was like in the 70s or something. When did this happen?
Whoa. No, the funny thing is, like, even 4 years ago, it happened before on the same island
Oh, that's crazy.
with 3 other people who were like sailing.
Huh. No, I can't say that I'd ever heard of this. Yeah, where were these guys? They're from Guam or something like that? I don't remember. But
Do you have
anyways.
any interesting topic, Amanda?
Nope. I don't know shit about this. I am not going to sit there and start talking about something I never read about.
No, neither do I. But it's not really something to debate about either. It's just like, have you heard of it? Yes or no? Or I mean, we could talk about. Do you think
going in the U.S.? How's the voting going? Like, is it still like between Trump and Biden?
well, those are the only
The
two
voting
options?
right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the
it's-
primaries
it's,
are done.
Yeah. It's going to be Trump
Who
versus
is winning?
Biden.
Who's
Yeah.
winning?
Syphilis fingers versus dementia.
So,
Those are our choices.
it's kind of up in the air. It's all within like margin of errors, but right now it's like slightly to Biden.
It's unbelievably
Slightly.
it's unbelievably complicated because what's hilarious is Trump is probably the only person in the country that could lose an election to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden is probably the only person in the country that could lose an election to Donald Trump. Like, that doesn't make sense, but that makes perfect sense if you think about it. It's so incredibly weird. And
Funny.
shit keeps happening, like especially what's happening with Israel. I mean, I was just like, there's no fucking way that Joe Biden is going to win because Democrats aren't going to vote for him. It's not that he lost right-wing voters. If anything, he's gained moderate right-wing voters from that whole thing, but young people will not vote for him. And so there's that. But then every single time we have an election in the United States, the pro-abortion people get absolutely run over. And Donald Trump did the most damage to the pro-choice movement. And so I think those people, maybe they will come, because it's not really even because of anything Biden or Trump are doing. Like this Arizona thing that came out where they basically banned all abortions, no exceptions for anything. That's the kind of thing where that's going to get people to vote against Trump. But it's so freaking weird. It's like both sides are trying to lose and you can't figure out who's going to win. It's crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's effectively what's going on for sure. I don't know, like I have a genuine fear that like democracy could literally end.
Why?
Because
Donald Trump said that he would suspend the Constitution because he said he'd be a dictator for just one day. I just like I don't want this guy, dude. This guy's a psycho.
Yeah.
What would I do? Why?
I don't know. Like I feel like Trump he might have been one of the best cases ever to display the actual strength of being able to check powers in this country, which we have, that's built into the system, and just the resiliency of it. But at the same time,
but the good thing is, like, when he's getting president again, then you only have to take him 4 years, and he can never become president again.
He'll just say no. He'll
that's what
probably
I'm saying.
do
like,
it.
He could totally do that. Like,
and
he'd be like, "No, we got to do a third term." Like, I don't want this. Like, not only that, this guy's a fucking felon. Like, I don't want to deal with this freaking guy. He's awful.
Yeah. So it's just so, I don't know.
This could be worse.
I'm voting for Biden. I don't care. I'm voting for Biden. I'm sorry. No.
Anyways, so anything science related you want to talk about? Because that's kind of my thing. I have been on here for an hour, so we got to find something juicy or I'll have to dip out.
Okay.
Well, I was asking Magnus.
Science. I like science. I mean, why shouldn't? I'm an atheist, so.
Well, fuck, we have nothing to talk about.
We just agree.
Yeah. And I mean, it's nice to know that exists. I don't know. It's 5 o'clock. I was on the computer for about 3 hours earlier today, editing videos and stuff. So I'll probably sign off. But we did an hour. I thought it was good.
I was waiting long on the computer.
It was good talking to you, Eric. I really appreciate it.